guys, it's Steve from Antics here. You're listening to the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast, only on the Counted Out 7 YouTube channel. Jay, let's go!
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another spirited edition of the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast. My name's Jay, and as alluded to in last week's episode, we are going back to the well once more with our special guest booker this week. From the Counted Out 7 podcast, we have our good friend Tyler. Tyler, how you doing, pal?
Well, I don't know. I'm hoping to stay your good friend by the time I'm done my booking and not become your bitter enemy. Because this is my first time doing this. I'm a little nervous. I'm real excited, though. We're getting extreme today, baby. ECW, ECW, ECW. Your favorite wrestling promotion of all time, Jay.
No, we're not doing the XWF.
Oh, sorry, the XW. Yeah, man, we're going to go ECW One Night Stand 2006 today. As we talked about on the show last week, a few weeks ago, I counted down the top 7 moments from these 2 pay-per-views. And as watching these 2 events back to back, there really is such a difference between the 2 events. You know, 2005 is your authentic, retro, throwback ECW pay-per-view. They were going for nostalgia. They wanted to hit it. 2006, though, going back and watching it now, when I first watched it, I didn't like the pay-per-view because I wanted 2005 again. But now watching it all these years later with a fresh set of eyes on it, I understand why the pay-per-view is the way it was, because now you're building to the launch of a relaunch of ECW. You know, it's not about having Axl Rotten come out and these guys that aren't on your roster and just, you know, reliving the glory for one night. You've kind of got to start planting seeds because you've got a weekly TV show coming up in a few days.
Well, 100%. And I think that it was the logical way to continue the event. If you're going to go with an ECW One Night Stand, exactly what you said. It's the 2005 ECW One Night Stand, to me, was like a love letter to ECW. It was a love letter to the fans to give them a, you know, turn back the hands of time and be able to experience ECW in its relatively purest form. I mean, obviously it was a little bit different with the involvement of WWE and the production value, things of that nature, but it was as close as it was ever going to come to being ECW. So I think that you kind of had to go in this direction for the second one, because if you just keep on doing nostalgia shows, once is great, amazing, twice is good. But if you continue to go along with every year, it's a reunion show. It's almost, then it become like WWE Legends Night. In a way.
You took the words right out of my mouth. You water it down, right? I kind of want to talk a little bit about the resurgence of ECW, though. You know, you go to, the end of 2004, they put out that fantastic documentary, The Rise and Fall of ECW, which was their highest grossing DVD at that time of all time. And I think that really shocked guys, you know, like in the upper WWE, you know, thinking, what the hell? Like, you know, we put out, and at this time period, WWE was putting out some of the best documentaries and DVDs. Like, there was some fantastic stuff coming out, and ECW is beating all of them. And RVD, you know, he ran to Vince with it. He said, listen, you need to do a reunion show. Like, there's a market here, and you know. And then you look at Shane Douglas, who also the same weekend did the Forever Hardcore show, right? Or Hardcore Homecoming show as well. And and that was actually in the ECW arena. And so now all of a sudden, like, ECW's just got all this vibe going. And it carried on for the whole year to the point where they put him on Sci-Fi and gave him a whole television show.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just curious now that you bring that up. Were there any guys that worked both shows? I don't remember.
Yes. Kid Cash was on both shows. Mick Foley was on both shows. The Blue Meanie was on both shows. Mikey Whipwreck was on both shows. Just Incredible was on both shows. Sabu worked both shows.
Quite a few.
I believe Sandman worked both shows as well.
I guess you couldn't have done the Hardcore Homecoming without, because there so many of the ECW originals were on One Night Stand. You couldn't have done it without them.
Yeah, well, and the only reason you didn't see guys like, Raven, Jerry Lynn, a lot of these big names also were under TNA contract at the time.
Right.
So some of them were not available to do both. But other guys like, Kid Cash had just got fired from TNA at that point. And I thought Joey Styles had great lines on these pay-per-views when he'd call him, here comes Kid Cash, Mr. TNA, total nonstop attitude, which I just thought was great because he got fired for having a bad attitude, right? Joey Styles, by the way, I think is one of the greatest commentators of all time.
I agree to disagree, but I appreciate your opinion, my friend.
He does it for me, man. He has this elegance about him where he gives proper credit to the matches. He calls everything with respect to the product, but I find his one-liners to be appropriately timed, and he's never trying to put himself over anything else.
I give him a lot of credit for being able to do that one-man booth for as long as he did it. It's an exceptionally hard job to carry a wrestling program on your back in terms of commentary, being by yourself and not having a foil in the quote-unquote heel commentator and color commentator and all that kind of thing. So he really played both roles. He is a fantastic commentator. I just can't get behind, those oh my gods and things like that. It's like nails on a chalkboard for me. When I hear that, I immediately want to change the channel. That's me.
That's fair. I like the oh my god. I think that was a nice catchphrase. The cat fight stuff. He had his little go-tos for sure. But for me, 2 thumbs up. I put Joey Styles in my top 5 greatest commentators of all time.
Yeah, I'm certainly not dismissing him as a commentator. He's just, for my own personal taste, he's not my favorite. I'm more of a traditionalist when it comes to commentary, but I definitely give him credit, and I think he should be on anybody's list of top commentators. He's just, for my own personal taste, doesn't do it for me.
The other point I want to talk about really quickly is I want to give, and I talked about this on my show as well when I talked about ECW, was Terry Funk. Terry Funk got a really big offer to work the first One Night Stand pay-per-view. And he got a much lesser offer to work Shane Douglas's pay-per-view in the ECW arena. And it's on YouTube. You can find it. He cuts this very passionate promo. And it's not even it's just a sit-down when he's just talking. And, he's like, I got this big offer. And I showed my wife. And she said, well, you better take Vince's offer. And at my age, I can't work both shows. And I said, I can't do it. I want to be with what I love. I want to be with the authenticness of ECW. And I really respect that out of Terry Funk, and I think that's why he's one of the most respected guys in the business. But I'm also really happy that the next year he got a chance to get showcased on the ECW One Night Stand pay-per-view on that big product, that big stage as well.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. I didn't know that story. As you know, I'm not the biggest ECW mark, so I don't tend to watch a lot of kayfabe commentaries or shoot interviews based on ECW performers. They're just not. It's just not my cup of tea. So I don't know as much about ECW as maybe I should. I am learning. I will say that watching these shows with the rebooking with our program and our podcast here, I do find that I'm growing a more of an appreciation for it. But I just find that the ultra violent nature of some of it is just a little bit too. For me. Yeah.
Now, and here's the thing, everybody always talks about ECW as it's the greatest. They did nothing wrong. ECW had some shit. They had a lot of shit too, and not everything was, the golden goose shit. You know what I mean? Like, they had some bad stuff as well. The one thing I will say about ECW, though, I really truly believe that they have the greatest fan base in the history of professional wrestling. Maybe next to the Crockett era Horseman run in the 80s from the NWA. I think those are the 2 greatest fan bases in the history of professional wrestling.
Yeah, there's a brand loyalty there for sure. Even now, it's been, 20 years since ECW has gone under and was bought out by Vince. 100%. The audience is there. They are, I think that many times with WWE fans, maybe to an extent, WCW fans are a little bit fickle. this goes back to conversations that we've had, you and I have had, and I've had with Tyrone on our podcast as well, is that I find that the wrestling subculture in terms of social media wrestling fandom is very toxic. Obviously not all of it, but there are some very, very toxic elements to it. Add that to the sort of woke movement and all that kind of thing. When you combine the two together, it becomes, there's a lot of toxicity there. But with ECW fandom, I find that it's very pure. It's almost like, your first love. You never quite love someone like that the same way. It's never quite the same or what.
And the reason why I say that also, though, and I agree with what you're saying there, your first love, and I really think that's a nice way to put that. The ECW fans weren't there to put themselves over, like you see in fans today. Fans today are just trying to get themselves over. ECW, if you go back and listen to all their chants, yeah, you know what? They chanted the whole time, and they were a very vocal part of that show, but it was to enhance the product, not to put themselves over. You know what I mean? When Francine came out, they would chant, "She's got herpes" at her. That's heat for her. You know what I mean? If you screwed up, hey, they're going to let you know you fucked up, because that's where their expectations are, to make you as a performer better. But, you never heard them sit there and chant, "This is awesome," or "We are awesome." You know what I mean? They always, Paul Heyman said it best, Rocky Horror Picture Show. They made it better.
Yeah, you didn't see beach balls being thrown into the ring during a match. Or
that's it.
Times did we see that on WrestleMania Raw, right?
100%.
The crowd would always kind of hijack the show. And, to be honest with you, I don't hate that if it's once or twice a year. I don't mind. I think it's kind of fun. It changes the dynamic a bit. I actually really enjoy those post-WrestleMania Raws. I mean, not anymore. They used to be quite a bit better. The last few Manias, it hasn't been quite the same. But, no, to your point, I think that they did definitely contribute to the product as more so than take away from it. There were some instances, even in this show, where I felt like they were trying to hijack a bit. But
and we'll talk about this in the show, but I think there's a specific moment when they got a reality check. A couple moments when they got a reality check in this show, that this isn't our ECW anymore.
Oh, 100%. Now, before we get into the rebooking, I do have a couple of questions for you I wanted to just throw your way.
Yeah.
I thought this. So, do you think, had we, all things being equal, and WCW had their, I guess they had the opportunity, let's say 2003. They had Hogan, they had Hall, they didn't have Hall at that point, but they had Nash, they had DDP, they had Goldberg, they had Booker T, all these guys. Do you think that a WCW type pay-per-view like this would have worked if you had all the stars aligned and maybe even had you held off on the invasion angle until you had all these stars? Because this has always been my argument for the invasion angle. Why do it right away? You knew that all the contracts with Time Warner were coming up. If you just held off, you could have had the invasion angle that everybody wanted. So I'm just wondering, had we done that and that been a sort of a solo WCW show, and then you build from that, do you think that would have worked or no?
I'm gonna say I think it would have worked. I do, but I don't think it would have been as successful as the ECW show.
I agree.
Because let's be real, everyone had already been in the WWE by this point. It didn't feel you can't sit there like WCW didn't have that arena that felt special. You know what I mean? I don't think that enough visually would have been done to make it feel different. The atmosphere, I think you would have just got a WWE crowd at a WCW, but it's all, unless you're getting a guy like Sting who'd never been in the company at that point, what are you going to do to make it feel different and special?
I agree with you, and I think that as well, to your point and to what we were just discussing with the fan base is really what made those one-night stand shows special.
Yeah.
Really sold it. I don't think that you're going to get that kind of passionate audience from WCW fans. I mean, obviously they were very passionate about their product, but not in the same way. So I do think that the invasion angle would have been well served to hold off for a year and then do it with more established stars. Yeah. But that's a conversation for another day. I just wanted to see if you thought that the pay-per-view would work in the same way for the company.
Well, yeah, because if you take a look at the the ECW pay-per-view, how many guys have never been on WWE TV or barely were on WWE TV? It felt fresh, Seeing the Sandman come out on that first pay-per-view is one of the greatest moments in WWE pay-per-view history when he made that entrance to Enter Sandman. It felt special. You know what I mean? The WCW pay-per-view like that, the only thing that you could have done to make something like that feel special is to have Sting come out, because he was the only guy that had never been over at that point. Goldberg had been there, Hogan had been there, Hall, Nat, like everybody had, Steiner, they've all have come over by that point, and nothing would have felt special. What are you going to do? Put Booker T and Scott Steiner on the WCW pay-per-view? Well, I saw it on SmackDown last week.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think that the dynamic would be different. You'd have to kind of do that pay-per-view as a WWE versus WCW. In the first pay-per-view would have to be that, because that was really the main rivalry with those two companies. So you do that pay-per-view of dream matches, whereas with ECW, they were kind of like the standalone. They were part of the Monday Night Wars or the that era, but they weren't in direct competition with either one of those companies.
Yeah,
in the same way.
And,
so I think the standalone for the first ECW made a lot of sense. And again, migrating to the second one in 2006 that we're covering today, I think you absolutely had to go in that direction. You couldn't just do, as we said earlier, you couldn't just do another nostalgia show. It had to be something that built to something else. Well,
and as WWE, WWF fans, we've been trained to hate WCW our entire fandom. So now why do I want to see these guys? I think that's one of the main reasons why that match on Nitro between Buff Bagwell and Arn and Booker T failed. Not just because Buff was terrible in the ring, but because I've been trained for the last 6 years that you guys are the enemy and I hate you.
Yeah.
So why do I want to see you now?
100%. I don't know that there were as many clear-cut lines as people think. I don't know that there were necessarily solely WCW fans or solely WWE fans. I'm sure there were some, but you and I growing up in that era, we were lucky to grow. That was the greatest era. The 80s and 90s were the greatest era in wrestling.
Yeah.
In the history of the business. So we're so lucky that we got a chance to experience that firsthand. And it's impossible to explain to someone who's 20 years old now what that was like. But,
yeah, it's just like the rise of guys like Hulk Hogan and Steve Austin, and The Rock to that level as well. But seeing and I'll use Stone Cold Steve Austin because that's more of when I was in high school. But when you went to high school, everybody was wearing a wrestling shirt when I was in high school. And now you're considered to be a loser if you like wrestling. If you wear high school, you know what I mean? Like it was a totally different world. Wrestling was mainstream. Everybody loved wrestling. You ask anybody in 1998, they all watched wrestling.
Yeah, but in 1995, to steal your logic, in 95, if you were wearing a Shawn Michaels t-shirt, you're a loser.
Yeah.
In 98, if you were wearing an Austin t-shirt, if you weren't wearing an Austin t-shirt, you were a loser.
100%. Right? You don't watch wrestling? Oh, man, you got to see this Stone Cold guy. He's awesome. And we don't have that anymore, But that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, no, 100%. But just to button it up is the business is evolved to a point now where I don't think that it won't allow for those kinds of stars to emerge anymore. So I think the business construct as a whole has evolved to a place where we're never going to get that lightning in a bottle again. I don't think.
You know what? I don't agree with that. I just don't think that anyone knows. No one has their finger on the pulse of what we need right now. You know what I mean? In the 90s, you needed someone to tell your boss to fuck off and drink a beer. What do we need right now? Who's going to captivate this generation? We're TikTokers, we're Instagrammers. Like, there's got to be something that's going to resonate with people and explode. Nobody's found it yet.
Well, I think what's old is new again. I think that we are at a place now in society where we could use another anti-authority figure like a Steve Austin, especially because of where we are in society, again, with, the woke movement and everybody being so hypersensitive to everything that's said and done. And a lot of that is positive in society. I'm not dismissing that, but I do think that we are a little bit too sensitive in society these days. And I think that having some anti-authority figure might resonate nowadays again.
Who knows, man? Who knows? But, Hogan was something new in the 80s. Say your prayers, take your vitamins, this big rip guy ripping his shirt. He captivated everybody. Yeah. Austin was something new in the late 90s. What's next,
We We need to bring back Right to Censor. I think maybe that might.
The Right to Censor has always got a warm place in my heart.
Anyhow, getting back to ECW One Night Stand 2006. Yeah, I mean, I took a lot of notes when I was watching the show. I don't have, obviously, I haven't rebooked, so I haven't done a deep dive into the matches. I'm very excited to see what you come up with. This is your first time at bat with the rebookings. So just to give some context here, folks, we are at June 11th, 2006 at the Hammerstein Ballroom in Manhattan, New York, New York. The attendance was 2,460, a buy rate of 304,000. It was our buy rate for this particular event. This, again, as we alluded to previously, was the first kind of coalescing of the two brands. We're trying to do a war angle here of ECW versus WWE. And we had a lot of interesting programs leading up to this. There was a television special that was shot and I believe aired the week previous. It was it a 2-hour
WWE versus ECW special? Yeah,
exactly. So that's kind of where we land with this, and we're hurtling towards the ECW launch on the Sci-Fi Channel, which is quite exciting at the time. Obviously, it didn't end up being quite what we thought it was going to be, but I think I'm going to let you take the reins here, and I'm just going to lay out, and I will chime in when called upon.
All right. Well, let's start it off then, man. What are we going with first here, Jay? What's the first match on the card?
The opening contest was actually, I thought, a hell of a way to start the show off. We had Jerry the King Lawler going up against Taz.
Yep, and I agree with you, and I left everything the exact same about this. I'm going to tell you right now, on a full disclosure, when I took a look at this card, I'm rebooking this a little bit differently. I'm not rebooking this with the WWE versus ECW vibes that they went into this, because I thought they went too heavy into that. I'm rebooking this as the start of a brand new company, a brand new ECW. Now, I'm not taking away from everything they've done. To me, this makes sense because Jerry Lawler has always been anti-ECW. Taz is one of the most over guys in ECW history. Obviously, he can't work full matches anymore because of his neck. So I thought this was a fun way to kind of tip your cap to say goodbye to the old ECW, and now we're going to start ushering in the new ECW.
100%. I mean, that slap to Styles was so stiff.
Yeah.
And I made this note here. I just love the heel Jerry Lawler character.
Me too.
Anybody who doesn't think he belongs in this spot, or there's a lot of people that think of Lawler as a commentator solely, and that makes sense because, his biggest national exposure has been beside JR. But if you don't know about Lawler's history in Memphis, you have to go educate yourself. This guy is an incredible performer.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. His stuff with Andy Kaufman, Austin Idol, Tommy Ridge, Bill Dundee, like you name it, man. AWA run with Kurt Hennig. He throws one of the best right hands in the business, but he's so good at getting heat. But I want that big crowd pop. I want that Taz mission spot. And this is such a great way to be like, okay, Taz, you just left SmackDown. Welcome to ECW. You're our new commentator. Get in the booth with Styles and let's get to some real action now.
100%. And I like the idea of having a two-man booth going forward. I don't think that we needed to have Joey Styles carry that. I mean, it makes sense for the first one night stand, but going forward, if you're going to
Well, he was with Mick Foley in the first one night stand as well.
Was it? Oh, that's right. Sorry, didn't he start off solo and then Foley joined him afterwards?
No, him and Foley did the whole show together.
Oh, okay.
Him and Foley did the whole show together, but this is your commentating team going forward. It's WWE now. Styles isn't doing this by himself. I don't think Vince was ever a big fan of Styles, to be honest, and his work. But this is your team, man, and this is the best way to get Taz and show him, okay, I'm on ECW now. Let's do this.
Yep, 100%. I couldn't agree more. So if you're finished with that one, I'll go forward to the match on the card, which is Kurt Angle going up against Randy Orton.
So I have changed this now. The first real match on my card is I have Super Crazy going one-on-one with Tajiri.
Okay.
Tajiri was brought back as an appearance for this card going forward, right? This was one of his first, I think this is one of his last appearances in a long time, but he'd been off WWE TV for a while. Super Crazy's with the company here. He's going to be with the company going forward. So I figure these guys have great chemistry together. They've had fantastic matches in the past. I want this pay-per-view to get off to a hot start in the ring. And I've got Super Crazy going over to Tajiri since he's staying with the company and Tajiri's not.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. That'd be a hot open for sure. I don't think we saw Tajiri again, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we saw him again until maybe a Cruiserweight Classic.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. This was one of his last appearances, and he'd been off TV, I think. I think he'd already been out of the company for about a year at this point as well. Yeah.
We didn't have a really established Cruiserweight division at this time. I mean, we did, but we didn't. It was hot and cold, so I think at this point they didn't really have much for Tajiri.
But you know what? This is a good way to, like, Tajiri's over with the WWE audience. You know, he's one of the most charismatic guys. All the stuff he did with Regal, multiple-time champion in the company. He was a very over babyface. This is a good way to let the fans know, hey, Super Crazy's not just one of these guys that rides out in the lawnmower. You know what I mean? Like, he's this guy's fantastic in the ring, and what a way to showcase him and put him against one of the best guys that he's ever fought.
I'm sorry, you just popped me with that. Just rides out with a lawnmower.
That's what they did with them.
Oh, it was so. Oh man, such a stereotype. But it's just, I don't know, the way you just popped me. That was funny.
Yeah, well, that's it. So that's how I want to open it up. I want Super Crazy going over and 12 minutes of just fast-paced craziness, and let's move on to ECW. You know.
Yeah, I'm still laughing about that. Sorry. Okay, so oh boy, where are we here? The next match we have on the card is the FBI, Little Guido and Tony Mamaluke, with Big Guido defeating Super Crazy and Tajiri. Obviously, this match has changed. What do you have for me, pal?
We are going with a authentic, old school ECW three-way dance. It is going to be a tag team three-way dance with the FBI going up against Danny Doring and Roadkill and Balls Mahoney and Masato Tanaka.
Okay.
So Balls Mahoney and Masato Tanaka are former ECW tag team champions. They brought Tanaka in as a one-off here. Balls Mahoney is signed with the company, as is Doring and Roadkill. I've got the FBI going over in this one. I've got Balls and Tanaka getting put out first, and I've got Doring and Roadkill getting pinned after about maybe 6 more minutes after Balls and Tanaka go out. The FBI, I think, is such a great act in ECW. I think Tony Mamaluke is vastly underrated. Little Guido / Nunzio is established to that fan base already. So I think it's the right call to put the FBI over, try to give them a little bit of steam. Going into the new ECW, you're still going to keep your fan base happy with the FBI here because they are originals, and I do not have the Big Show coming out and destroying them after.
Okay, good. Yeah, I didn't want that. I thought it was unnecessary. I was okay with the Big Show going to ECW when they first started it. I didn't mind him being there. It kind of fit in a way. But not for the purposes of this event. I certainly didn't need him coming out and doing that chokeslam spot. So the other thing too is, so I have here, I love that you have Tanaka on the card as well. Still, I love seeing him on the original presentation. It was great to see him back.
Yeah.
Balls Mahoney though. Oh.
Yeah. You know, his best days were definitely behind him at this point. All he was pretty much there for was to throw that jab, the Balls jab, which was super over with the crowd, but. Hey man, if he's on your roster, he's an ECW original. I feel you put him in this tag match, it's going to hide him a lot more than put him in a singles match, so you can protect him more. And they're former ECW tag team champions, so it makes sense from a booking standpoint as well.
What was his name? Was it Santa Claus?
He did Santa Claus and Bobo Bradley or Boo Boo Bradley or something in Smoky Mountain as well.
Santa Claus.
Yeah, that's a great gimmick, by the way.
Yeah, I think it lasted one shot.
Yeah, he wasn't there for much. So yeah, you got the FBI going over. Keep them strong going onto your sci-fi show.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm going to probably not disagree with a lot here based on the fact that you're much more established in ECW, Mark, than I am. I'm sure that if there's something I really strongly disagree with, I'll voice my opinion, obviously. But so far, I like that you're starting off the show building towards some of the bigger matches, I'm assuming, that are going to involve the WWE stars as well. But I like that you're starting off kind of planting seeds with the homegrown talent, much the way we did with the 2005 offering of this event.
But I'm trying to do it in a way to build to your sci-fi as well. You know, yeah. I'm not having a guy like Tajiri go over and you never see him again. Same thing with Masato Tanaka. That's why I put him in this tag match. He's a name to pop the ECW fans, but we're putting over the guys that you're going to see every week on Sci-Fi.
Makes sense. Makes 100% sense. Okay, so up we have on our card, we had Rey Mysterio going up against Sabu for the World Heavyweight Championship.
So to me, this is the moment, I think, where ECW fans got their wake-up call that this is not the ECW that we're going to want to see. That just based on the finish of this match with Sabu not being able to get up after a DDT, Sabu is indestructible to these people.
Yeah.
And I just thought the finish ruined this match. I have changed this match completely. I've taken Rey Mysterio completely off of this card. I don't need the world champion on this card because why? Why do I need Rey on this card? He's the world champion of SmackDown. Let's leave him on SmackDown. So I rebooked this. I have Sabu going one-on-one with Kurt Angle.
Okay. Sorry for the dead air there. I'm just thinking. Walk me through it.
Okay. So Kurt Angle has been drafted to ECW by Paul Heyman. And Kurt Angle needs to get accepted by these people. You know what I mean? He's a WWE guy. So I'm going to put him up with one of the most respected ECW talents of all time. And I'm going to have these guys go to war. This is going to be your classic Sabu match. You're going to have your chairs. You're going to have your tables. But Angle's going to hang with them. And Angle's going to bring it with him. And I actually have Kurt Angle going over via the ankle lock. And that is something that you do not see as Sabu gets submitted ever. So my hope for this match is after the match is over, Sabu's going to get up, holding his ankle, selling like crazy, and he's going to shake Kurt Angle's hand. And I'm going to hope that the fact that Kurt Angle came in here, had a toe-to-toe, back-and-forth matchup with one of the most respected guys in ECW history, makes him tap out, and then gets the handshake from Sabu. I'm going to hope that is going to put Kurt Angle over to this ECW audience and give him respect with them. And Sabu, it doesn't hurt Sabu to lose to Kurt Angle.
No, I agree with that. I was just thinking about it in my mind's eye, visualizing. I can absolutely see in the middle of the ring, Angle have the ankle lock. I could even see, Sabu biting his hand to try to fight the pain, really digging deep with his teeth into his hand.
This is a long, drawn-out ankle lock. This isn't your quick bullshit tap-out. This is, Kurt Angle's on the verge of breaking this guy's ankle, and the only reason why I don't have Kurt Angle legitimately breaking that ankle is because I need Sabu to be on TV.
100%. And I feel, we talked about this off-air a little bit, I feel as though Kurt Angle was maybe the most legitimate guy to go to ECW. He was the one that I bought the most going from the WWE. Because he's a legit badass. And I think 100%. That so much of Angle in the WWE was focused on comedy. Like, we would go in and out from him being legit killer badass Kurt Angle to then doing the stuff with Steve Austin or what have you. So I feel, though, with Angle being in this company, absolutely the way you've done it legitimizes him to the ECW audience. But I also feel as though I think maybe my favorite version of Kurt Angle was ECW Kurt Angle. I mean, it was short.
I just watched the ECW on Sci-Fi they did at the Hammerstein Ballroom when he came out and just beat the shit out of the Brooklyn Brawler. He just headbutted him in the face. He's got the mouth guard in. He looked like a killer, right? I love that. And I think if you have Sabu stand in the middle of the ring and shake his hand after and give him respect, hey, you got me. And it's got to be a competitive match or this doesn't work.
Oh, 100%. You can't have it be a squash. And I think the styles clash in a way that are almost complement each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I really think that if and it's going to be all up to Sabu how this match plays out, though, because Sabu was on his game in this match with Rey Mysterio, and I really thought they had a fantastic match with the side of the finish. So if you get that motivated Sabu and you get him hitting all those spots with no botches, him and Kurt Angle could possibly have the match of the night.
I agree with that. So I just had one quick question about the Sabu and Rey Mysterio match, because I wasn't really up on the backstage at this point for this particular card. Was that a shoot injury, or was that just
no, it was a work?
Was it work?
It was a work. Yep.
Okay. I wasn't 100% sure.
Terrible finish. And I think that's the moment when all the diehard ECW fans, part of my friends here, went, "What the fuck? What the hell are we getting? What's going on here?" You know, and if you look at this card, the first match on the original card is Kurt Angle versus Randy Orton. I think people are going, "Well, what the hell's going on here? This isn't ECW." You know, people didn't know. They didn't have their expectations managed.
And it was a good match. That we talked about that as well off air. That Randy Kurt Angle match was really good. Yeah. But again,
what's it do for anybody?
And why are we having, SmackDown's main event from a month ago on as our opening contest? It makes me
100%. And what does it do to build your ECW brand? I don't need to see WWE. I think that they bastardize these brand splits, and you see everybody on every show. It doesn't mean anything. I will say that I do have a couple WWE guys coming up on the show, but it makes sense, and I'm not bastardizing anything.
No, 100%. So I think in terms of what you booked so far, this all makes sense. I'm excited to see this match in terms of how you've laid it out. And again, I just love that visual of Sabu just fighting as hard as he can to avoid that, but eventually just having to, because he knows his ankle's going to get broken. And Angle like a vicious.
No, an Angle will break it. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks like a vicious, pit bull or a Rottweiler. That facial expression with the mouth guard. Oh, you
right. So you take that picture that you just painted, and then you imagine that handshake in the middle of the ring after. Kurt Angle is solidified with those people.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you. So. Moving on to the next match on our card, we have Edge, Lita, and Mick Foley taking on Beulah McGillicuddy, Terry Funk, and Tommy Dreamer. Now, we've talked about this one off air a little bit as well. I'm going to let you go on with whatever you have booked here, but I do have some points about this match in particular.
Okay, well, this match isn't happening right now. My next match on the card, I want a little bit of a bring me down here, because I think this last match is pretty intense, and I don't want to go right into the next one crazy. So I've got a one-on-one contest with former ECW World Champion Just Incredible going up one-on-one with the debuting CM Punk. So basically, all I'm doing here is I'm bumping up CM Punk's debut by 2 months with the exact same match that he had to showcase him. My goal for this is I just think this is such a great place and a great arena to debut CM Punk. And it's going to show your audience, because CM Punk is an internet darling, and he always has been. And especially at this point in his career, coming off his great run of the Summer of Punk and Ring of Honor, this is kind of my little... Okay, ECW, this is going to be the new guy that you guys can get behind.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that audience that would be in attendance, the ECW audience, it would translate very well, because I would assume that a large number of the fans in attendance would be very well acquainted with ROH.
Yep.
So I think that those two coming together, I could absolutely see Punk getting a huge pop. And he was already in OVW at this time anyway, so moving him up a couple of months, I'm 100% fine with that.
Yep.
And
I wouldn't... This would be the first time that I would have Punk appear in front of a live crowd, though. I would keep all those kind of little straight edge vignettes that he was doing in the weeks leading up to his debut, but I would have Credible cutting promos, on WWE TV, wherever, on the internet, wherever it kind of has to be. Because you don't really have a lot of build up to this, but I think I would have Credible call him out. I'm tired of hearing about CM Punk. I'm calling him out. I want him at this pay-per-view. I guess that would be something you'd have to build up on WWE TV leading up to that.
You could even do an open challenge.
Open challenge, yeah. But I want Punk's debut to be announced. I don't want him to be a surprise. Okay. I want it to be announced. I want this to be the debut of CM Punk. I want it to be built around his debut, and I want this to be the first time that people get to see CM Punk.
100%. And again, going back to what I said a few moments ago, and I think you agree, this would be the crowd to debut him in front of. People would be educated on who he is. You don't have to tell that story. I mean, you can tell it in commentary, obviously, for those that are unfamiliar. But I dare say that as much as people who are in attendance would be educated, a large number of the people who bought the pay-per-view would be educated as well in terms of who this guy is. So I definitely think getting a huge pop from that audience, you're going to establish him as a star based on the reaction he gets from the crowd.
100%. And this is just a showcase match for Punk, 6 to 8 minutes. Credible will get very little offense in. This is a CM Punk, just like they booked his debut originally. You know what I mean? Get him over to the people. Credible. I love Justin Credible, and he's a friend of our show. I've had the pleasure to interview him, but he's even said himself to me personally, I just wasn't into the ECW, so I just quit. I didn't care. So, it didn't matter for him at this point, right? Do the job, puts Punk over a former ECW world champion in his debut.
How do we go over here? Do we go Anaconda Vice, or do we go?
Yeah, we're gonna keep the original. Everything is the exact same. So this is how Punk came into debut. He was trying to get the Anaconda Vice over. We'll keep running with that.
So we're gonna do two submissions back to back, which is fun. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna do two back to back.
Okay, no problem at all. Yeah, that sounds good. I think it makes a ton of sense to debut him here, if for no other reason than, again, I think the crowd interaction. I don't think you're going to get the same reaction for Punk debuting on SmackDown, on Sci-Fi ECW, in Columbus, Ohio or something.
Exactly. Well, and it's funny though, because Punk's debut actually was in the same arena on ECW and Sci-Fi.
Oh, okay.
I just figured, well, it went over so awesome when they did it, and that was the only highlight of that show, because I just rewatched that show when I was rebooking or doing my list for my show, and I said, well, why not just put that on the pay-per-view? Yeah. Right, and now you have Punk as an established star for your new ECW, right? So now we've got guys like Super Crazy, Kurt Angle, and CM Punk, and the FBI as focal points moving forward, right?
100%. Just a quick sidebar here for you, because we're talking about so much about ECW on Sci-Fi and how it was taped after SmackDown tapings on the Tuesdays, or I believe they're still taping on Tuesdays at this point.
Yeah.
What did you think of the presentation in terms of, like, they curtain off the SmackDown set? You had that kind of smaller ECW set, and they were walking through the audience.
I mean,
that presentation, I thought it was kind of cool, actually.
I thought it was better than what it had any right being, but I really think that they should have just rented a smaller arena and filmed a month of TV at a time and proceeded it in a different light. I think it should have had a more Ring of Honor, not quite that small of an arena, but I think that it was definitely missing. Like it felt like a WWE show to me. It didn't feel different. I think they should have made that show feel different.
100%. So if you had done it, in a different era, you could have used Full Sail or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I would have liked to have seen ECW get positioned exactly like how they've done NXT.
Yeah, I like that. That makes sense. But a big entrance mark.
Yeah, I thought it looked great. They had the old brick entrance. I liked it coming through the crowd. Like, I thought it was the best for what they decided to go with. It's the best way they could have done it. But if you built it up like NXT, and that way you could still build to those big arena shows, and it feels crazy, right?
Even that second entrance that they came up with that looked a little bit like the old Superstars entrance, the metal stuff. I like that one a lot too. Yeah,
me too. I'm with it. I thought they did as good of a job as they could have done for sure.
Okay, so moving forward, you know what? I think what I'll do, because the next match on the card is Balls Mahoney versus Masato Tanaka. So I feel as though I'm just going to let you take the reins here, because we've gone past a lot of the matches that I would have kind of brought to your attention, then you've rebooked. You've kind of obviously gone in a different direction here. So why don't you just take the reins?
Well, I'll tell you what, though. I my show layout is actually, the last three parts are exactly like the pay-per-view as well. So there's a lot of similarities here. It's just my next match I have is I have Terry Funk, Tommy Dreamer, and the Sandman going up against Edge, Mick Foley, and Mikey Whipwreck.
Okay. Yeah,
So I left the women out of this match. There will be a spot for them to get involved. They're going to have their cat fight, so Joey Styles can yell cat fight. But basically, my booking going forward is Edge is going to play the Jerry Lawler role essentially here. You know, I like the Cole Hardcore Championship thing that him and Foley did. I'm going to keep all of that. Edge is just sick of hearing about ECW. I'm tired of hearing it. What's so special about it? Heyman will come out and say, well, you know, why don't you come out with and fight Funk and Dreamer, right? And then I want Mikey Whipwreck to align with Edge and Foley because of his history with Mick Foley being former tag team champions. So you do maybe Mikey come out with first Swerve, you know what I mean? You can have Edge and Foley laying a beat down on Funk and Dreamer. Have Mikey come out for the save, but join in on the beatdown. Be like, without Mick Foley, I'd be nothing. These guys, you know, Edge is a superstar. Have Mikey turn his back on ECW because Mikey didn't get signed after this, so it doesn't matter.
Yep.
And then, of course, you can build up and have them. You know, you've got a third guy. Well, at ECW One Night Stand, we're bringing in the Sandman, and you build up to the Sandman being a special attraction again.
100%. I'm all about this. I will say, leading up to this match, I loved the Heyman promo on Foley, calling him a prostitute. I thought it was exceptionally well done. I really loved Foley's promo in the ring, talking about how he sold out. Yeah, I've sold out Madison Square Garden. And this and that.
The Stephanie McMahon. I thought his promo, the greatest leader of ECW of all time, Stephanie McMahon, just genius. Yeah, Foley was great here. And I would leave all that stuff, you know. The build-up will pretty much stay the same except for that one sidebar angle. I want that Foley promo where he's sitting in the chair and Terry Funk beats him hard way to try to open him up. The only thing I'm changing is just to throw Mikey Whipwreck in there and align himself with Edge and Foley.
Right. So I have a few points here, a couple of notes that I took during this match.
Yeah.
First one being we talked about this off. We talked a lot about this off air before we decided to land on this episode. Was I don't buy Tommy Dreamer in this spot. I mean, we had seen him being jobbed out on Velocity and what have you for a couple of years now, and then, you know, drinking water out of a urinal and tobacco spit and all this.
It's a lot better than regular water. It's colder. That's still a great. I mean, that's a great line.
Or in a sense, if you're drinking tobacco spit, you're hardcore, but in a completely different way. I guess because it's ECW and you don't necessarily have to be an incredible worker to get over an ECW. I'm not saying he's a bad worker. He's a decent hand, but it's just hard for me to translate seeing him presented this way for so long and then suddenly he's this. Suddenly we're supposed to believe that he can go toe to toe with Edge. I agree with you 100%. I felt weird to me as well. I love Tommy Dreamer. I do think he's great in the ring, but it's a product of bad booking. WWE never gave us a reason to believe that Tommy Dreamer could hang with Edge. So why am I believing that he can hang with Edge just because we're in an ECW arena now? Yeah, exactly. So,
you know, and Edge played this role perfect too, the cocky heel bastard. So he was great in this role. I didn't want to take him out of it.
Yeah, no, and again, I'm not dismissing Tommy Dreamer's in-ring work whatsoever. I think he's a great worker. I just think that, to your point, it's storytelling, and you know, you can't. I don't know. It's like for me, in a way, like it's comparing apples to oranges, I guess. But it'd be like taking Crash Holly off of Velocity and putting him in to challenge for the ECW title.
100%. It's bad booking. It's just poor booking of somebody, and they do this even present day. Like I'll use a guy like Bobby Lashley. It took Bobby Lashley a long time to get back over because they booked him like an idiot for so long. You know what I mean? Braun Strowman is another guy. He was believable, and then all of a sudden they booked him like crap, and now nobody believed in him. Like it's just bad booking.
I don't know how over he is. It's going to be very interesting to see when we get back to live crowds who's over and who isn't. Because I feel like there's a lot of people they think are over that aren't over at all.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's going to be interesting here for sure.
A couple of other points here, just quickly. I noticed Taz and Styles on commentary dismissing Foley as hardcore because he was the heel. I mean, come on. I mean, you're talking about Mick Foley here. You're going to start telling me that he's not hardcore.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're trying to to maybe throw back to his ECW gimmick where he was the anti-hardcore guy. But yeah, if he's coming in saying we had the greatest hardcore match of all time, I think maybe they're trying to get over that he's changed, that sellout McFoley isn't hardcore anymore.
Maybe, but it was a disconnect for me in terms of because the audience is so well educated. I mean, arguably that Hell in the Cell spot there's an argument to be made that it's the most famous spot in wrestling history.
100%.
There's an argument for that. I don't know if it is, but it's certainly up there.
It's up there.
Everybody knows that spot. Certainly everybody watching this pay-per-view knew that spot. So it was a huge disconnect for me. The last thing I want to say is just from a purely, I guess, male-oriented perspective, Lita in 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
She was an incredible worker, and she did a great job at this event. But just from a red-blooded Canadian standpoint, I mean, she never looked hotter.
She's beautiful, and her heel work is vastly. At the time, I didn't like her heel work, and now I go back and watch it. I'm like, I didn't like it because I wasn't supposed to like it. Yeah, she did such a great job and she added so much to Edge. Bringing her with Edge is I attributed to bringing Sherry Martel with Shawn Michaels. It pushed them to that level that I don't think they could have got without them.
Vastly, extremely underrated in terms of her contributions. You look back and see her work in this time frame in terms of what she was able to accomplish. To your point, I don't see Edge getting to where he was. He would have gotten there eventually, but he got there a lot faster with Lita as his heater. For sure.
Yeah, 100%. I've got the heels going over here as well when Edge pins a Sandman. I mean, it's WWE. Let's be real. Edge isn't losing to anyone in ECW, and nor should he. But yeah, basically the same match. I want Funk and Foley to have all the same spots. Mikey is just kind of there. He's a great hand. But nothing crazy for Mikey. Him and Sandman are just gonna brawl around, whatever, right? You could possibly even have Edge just lay out Mikey after the match because he's a piece of shit. That one doesn't, whatever. Mikey didn't sign with the company, so it didn't really matter at that point, right?
Yeah. No, I'm all about that. I agree with that. Everything you've said so far, I agree with in terms of this booking. So, I think you're doing great. It's a great way to get those two on the card as well, especially with Sandman. You want to get him in. I thought that was well done. So, yeah, I'm all about it.
Yeah, so
I'm going to let you continue on here.
Because you mentioned the Sandman getting him in. I hated the way they got him in with this Eugene segment that came next on the card. I thought it was terrible. But I also have a segment here as well, and I've got Stevie Richards coming out. Now, I need to apologize in advance to Tyrone and Mike because they are absolutely going to hate this. And I also do not like doing this either. But from a booking standpoint, I just think it makes sense. I've got Stevie Richards coming out and basically saying, I'm not going to be an afterthought of this new ECW. I demand to be on this card, and I'm calling anybody out in the back right now to come out and fight me. And we're going to have the Big Show come out and just lay him out with a choke slam.
Okay.
The Big Show is a highly invested product by the WWE. They've moved him over to ECW. He became the focal point of ECW as their world champion in the months after this. So as much as I hate it because I love Stevie Richards, I really love him. And I went back and forth with having Stevie Richards in the Just Incredible spot and flipping these guys around. That's what we talked about off air last night. I was having a dilemma. I didn't know who to put in this spot. I ended up going with Stevie Richards to get the choke slam because I don't think it hurts him as much as losing to Punk. Because I didn't want that match to be competitive with Punk, right? So I didn't want Stevie to just kind of get jobbed out in a match. I'd rather just have him get caught off guard with a choke slam from the Big Show, and then him and Punk can fight down the road and have a 20-minute back and forth instead of having Punk just run over him.
Right.
And I just thought Stevie's a better talker than Credible as well. So Stevie will get that heat because he's so good on the microphone, and Stevie can rebound from it because he's so good on the microphone.
Yeah, I think you made the right choice. It makes 100% sense to me. I don't see Credible being in that spot as much as I do Richards. I think it was the choice you made. I think you're going to get a better match out of Credible with Punk anyway as well. I'm not dismissing Stevie Richards' work, but I just think in terms of if you want to get Punk over the way you want to get him over, I think Credible's the guy to do it.
Yeah, Credibles just got to put him over. If I've got Stevie and Punk, I want him to go 20 minutes. I want him to go 12 minutes. You know what I mean? I want them to have a competitive match. That's not what I wanted at a Punk's debut tonight. So
Yeah.
one with Stevie here. I hate the fact that I have to squash him, but you know, this is the launch of a new promotion, and the Big Show is going to be a heavy part of it. You can't just not bring him over to ECW and not involve him on this at all. And I didn't want to have him come out and wreck 6 guys like he did on the original pay-per-view. So let him hit a chokeslam on Stevie off guard where Stevie's not prepared for it. You know, Stevie Richards not turning any heads in this new ECW, unfortunately, as we saw. So it doesn't kill Stevie.
No, it doesn't at all. And I think that bringing the Big Show in to ECW actually makes sense on a few levels based on the interaction he'd had in the previous years with Paul Heyman as well. I mean, we talked about not too long ago that famous heel turn on Brock Lesnar at Madison Square Garden, and Heyman aligning himself with Big Show. So I think that all makes sense in terms of if you're going to go back and look into history and make sense of some of these booking choices and who they brought over from the WWE roster. There is history to kind of, you can put those pieces together. You can bridge that gap in terms of logic for me.
Yeah.
I will say about the original spot that I watched last night with Sandman and Eugene, I wasn't a big fan of it either, but I thought that Eugene's selling of the Singapore Cane was incredible. He looked like animal. His face expressions were incredible for that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Eugene character and Nick Desmore in general. I think he really can pull off anything. He's so talented, and but Eugene's not a heel, you know what I mean? So I just kind of felt bad for him. Like, he's just this naive, nice person, and he just wants to love ECW. I just thought he was the wrong guy for that. Bring the coach out if you want to do that. You know what I mean? Bring a heel out, you know, not Eugene. Like, it didn't make sense to me.
I agree with that 100%. But for what they did, I thought that they hit a home run in terms of his selling of it. I agree with you changing it, but just it was a testament to what a good performer Nick Dinsmore is, for sure.
100%. And that brings us to the main event. So I left the very first match the exact same, and I'm leaving the main event the exact same with a couple little tweaks how the match was laid out. But we had John Cena, RVD for the world title. I think this made sense from a booking standpoint. ECW needs a champion. RVD is the Money in the Bank holder. Well, you know what? Let me get the WWE title and make it the ECW title. I really like the booking on that. It made sense. The one thing, though, I did not... Well, the best spot of the whole match is the first 6-7 minutes of this match. I've never seen a more electric crowd in my entire life of watching professional wrestling. It was really fantastic to watch. The shirt throwing spot where they go back and forth. That stuff was just great. But something I didn't like about the match, and I don't know if you noticed this or not, is I just thought that John Cena kind of just beat the shit out of RVD the entire match. Like, after that first 5-10 minutes, it was all Cena. And I was like, oh man, I can't wait for RVD to, you know, start getting his comeback. This place is going to lose its mind. But then all of a sudden, Edge just came out and hit him. Like, RVD never got that fire-up comeback spot. And I just thought it made him look weak. So I've laid out the match the exact same, except RVD is going to get that little bit of a comeback spot. I've got RVD kicking out for the finish here of an attitude adjustment. Cena's frustrated, so he picks up a chair that's in the ring, and he's waiting for RVD to get up. RVD's going to spring up, and he's going to nail him with a Van Daminator here. And both guys are going to be laid out. RVD's exhausted from getting beat up. He's just taking the attitude adjustment, so he's down. Cena's been laid out because of the Van Daminator. And then I'm going to do the same spot with Edge coming in again and spearing Cena through the table. I'm going to keep that in there. But RVD doesn't see it. So RVD, when he gets up, is going to think that Cena's down from the Van Daminator, from the Van Daminator, and he's going to get up and hit the 5-star frog splash, and we're still going to get the new champion.
Okay. I like the way you've laid it out. I disagree with having Edge's involvement. I hated it. I thought it was unnecessary. I thought that if you're going to launch the ECW brand, why are you bringing a Fed guy in to screw over another Fed guy? It just, to me, almost overshadows the big moment that we're going to get with Rob Van Dam winning the title for the first time. I understand why you left it in, but I criticize the original booking, not yours. I don't understand why you were going to water down that moment with Edge's involvement. It made no sense to me. I get that we're going into this program into the summer with Cena and Edge, but I just didn't need to see that. We could have held off on that till Raw or something else. Screw him over on Raw or on the next pay-per-view. Don't do it at ECW. Also, the Heyman
that's what I thought really took away from it. I thought the Edge stuff was fine. The Heyman thing bothered me.
They both bothered me. How is he suddenly a ref? And how does this match and this title switch? How does this have any legitimacy when you have Heyman coming out with his headphones around his neck and, counting the three? It was a huge disconnect for me. So I get why you kept it, and it makes sense in terms of what actually happened and all that kind of thing. But I thought that this win was so anticlimactic for Rob.
Yeah. I thought the Heyman thing really confused the crowd, and that's what took away from the pop. So I'm taking Heyman out of the equation. I'm going to have the referee make the count so people know it's official. I keep Edge in because we need to build the SummerSlam. And Cena and Edge are going to main event SummerSlam. So you still have your controversy where maybe now you can rebook that. Vince is pissed, and he says, you know what, RVD, you can be this world champion, but you're not my WWE champion. I'm going to put that up. The winner in Cena and Edge or whoever at SummerSlam can have that maybe. There's that controversy where you can split that off and make RVD the ECW world champion and maybe not have him as both. I don't know. I didn't like how he just was handed an ECW title and still the WWE champion. So I maybe would rebook that a little bit differently. You're building to SummerSlam with Edge. And let's be real, Edge at this point is a piece of shit. He doesn't give a shit about anything but himself. And he's got a problem with Cena. So he's gonna cost Cena the belt. He doesn't care about where it goes.
I kind of like the idea. This popped in my head, and I'm not trying to change your booking at all. But I kind of like the idea of Edge coming in and attempting to interfere, and then both RVD and Cena heading him off.
Yeah.
And maybe both taking their turns, taking shots at him, kind of like each hitting a move on him or something like that, and then throwing him out of the ring. And then when Cena's distracted, having RVD, hit the Van Daminator and then the 5-star frog splash. I kind of like that. Maybe. I
thought about that as well. And the reason I didn't go for it is because you've got to protect Cena still because he's the face of your company at this point. Yeah. I think that it gives him an out, but I like the fact that I changed my booking to RVD doesn't know that his move isn't the move that laid out Cena. I think that's really important because RVD is a face, right? And the original booking, RVD has been laid out and he gets up and Cena's on the ground. Well, yeah, you didn't do anything, Rob. So now you're being a heel. And I didn't like that. RVD should clearly know that he didn't do anything. So that's my take. That's why I rebooked it that way with the Van Daminator spot, having Cena down. So Rob thinks that his move has kept Cena down.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm fine with that. You walk me through it. It makes a lot of sense. I think you still protect. You keep both guys whole that way. Yeah, that's fine with me. I'm good with that.
And then now we're on the one-way ticket to Sci-Fi and the ECW Zombie, baby. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Very much so. I think you did an exceptional job rebooking. Great job for your first time, man. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, not bad there. I'm really proud of the Kurt Angle thing. I think that'd be the match of the night on there. I think that, but now you're not disappointing the ECW fans. I think that you've let them know that things are going to be different without hurting their love for ECW.
Yeah, 100%. I think you've walked a really, really fine line here, or walked a razor's edge. And you came away better for it. I think it's a much better presentation than what we got.
Thanks, Chico.
You got it. Hey, yo.
That's it. That's my rebooking of ECW One Night Stand 2006.
100%. And a very good job you did of it, too. This is usually the time in the show where Tyrone would give me my next assignment. But I think what we're going to do for this week is we're just going to keep it as a surprise. Tyrone and I have been back and forth discussions, and I think we're just going to reveal our next episode when it drops. It's going to be, we're not 100% sure what we're covering yet, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But I once again want to thank Tyler for coming on the show and helping us out. And
maybe people can jump over to your social media to find out what the next show is going to be.
That's absolutely fair. We are going to discuss that. We do polls from time to time, hence this show being booked today by Tyler. So we will keep you posted on social media and tell you what's coming up in the weeks and months on programming, as Gorilla Monsoon would say. Tune in to not only our show here on the YouTube channel, the Counted Out 7 YouTube channel, but where can they find you, my friend?
We're on everything, man. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, basically anywhere that podcasts are heard, you can hear us. We are Counted Out with Mike and Tyler. Before I sign off here, I want to say a big thank you to Tyrone for letting me step in and play. Well, him and I are both in the restaurant industry and life gets busy sometimes, so thanks for letting me fill in. I'm sorry about Stevie Richards, okay? I'm sorry. I know you probably punch a hole through whatever you're listening to. I didn't want to do it either, but it had to be done. It had to be done. You can check out all of our stuff at www.countedout7.com, including finding the Good Friends Better Interview podcast there. Yeah, man, and we're just going to keep on rolling, man. Got some interviews hopefully coming up. Doing our top 7 countdown list. So just having fun, man, and happy to be part of a team with you and Tyrone. I think you guys do exceptional work, and we're happy to have you on the Countdown 7 YouTube page.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I certainly appreciate that. And you've been nothing but gracious with your time and your efforts. So we are extremely gratified to be a part of the family and hope to continue on for years to come. You can find us on Instagram at good_enemies and on Twitter at good_enemies. And for myself, for Tyler, for ECW One Night Stand 2006, and for our mystery episode next week, the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast thanks you very much.
Cheers.